My name is Manya Frydman Perel. I am here by a miracle to tell my story and to give testimony of surviving the greatest human catastrophe on earth, the Holocaust. I remember the years of 1939 to 1945. Those were years of humiliation, starvation, and torture. Those were years when death would have been a blessing for those who were still alive. We did not know that such things would or could happen to us. Our minds could not comprehend that in the 20th century, in a world of civilization and culture, human beings could be so tortured. Hitler and his Nazis committed the most brutal crimes against us. They succeeded in the near destruction of European Jewry by a systematic and premeditated slaughter. I am a survivor of 8 concentration camps. It started in the year of 1939. At that time, I was a teenager, like any others, with dreams for a future. I lived with my family in the city Radom in Poland. This was 2 hours from the capital city of Warsaw. My parents owned a bakery. We were 5 boys and 5 girls. Though life in Radom was not easy, but we managed to have a life with respect and togetherness. My parents helped poor people by giving them some bread. Relatives and friends came to our home from small towns to see a doctor or for other reasons. They slept and ate in our home, and they were welcome. I went to a public school, and I was a good student, hoping that someday I will be able to go to college to have a good education. But on September 1st, 1939, my dreams were shattered when the German Nazis marched into our city. First, they confiscated our homes. Then we had to wear the Star of David on our arms so that we could be recognized as Jews. Then we were forbidden to walk on the sidewalks. We were forbidden to go to school. The killings of innocent Jewish people started, and the shortage of bread began. My brothers risked their lives for traveling to the city of Lublin, where the mills of grain were, and bringing flour so we could bake and provide more bread for the hungry people who were standing in line the whole night to get a bread. Soon after, the Germans herded us into a ghetto to be isolated from the Gentiles. The ghetto was very crowded, not enough houses where to sleep, and the panic, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. The rations of bread began. I was chosen to go out from the ghetto to an office where the German distributed flour to bake some bread. I put on my armband with the Star of David, took with me the numbers of how many people are in the ghetto, and walking, 2 German policemen stopped me, and they disregarded my permission. They said that I am not allowed to go out from the ghetto. They ordered me to stay against a wall, and they pointed at me the rifles to shoot me. Then they asked if I have some money, so I gave them 20 zlotys, and they said that this time they will spare my life, and I went back to the ghetto, shaken and frightened. In August of 1942, I can still remember the sounds of the German soldiers' boots as they came beating us and chasing us out from the house into an open place. It was hot, all the people in one place. The selections began, people with working cards to the right, without to the left. I clung to my parents holding a few belongings and said, I want to go with you so I will be able to help wherever they will take us. But I was torn away from my family by a German stormtrooper who said that I am young and they will need me for work. That day I saw my family for the last time. They went into a cattle train and taken to Treblinka extermination camp in Poland to be gassed and cremated. I remained in the ghetto, and in the ghetto my other brother was sick and dying. He was laying in bed unattended, without doctor or medicine. Being in the ghetto, the guards took us out to the field for work to cut turf. Turf is a substitute for coals to make the houses warm. The Germans, we had to make a big amount of cutting. Otherwise, we were punished with beating us with a club over the head. One day, I risked my life by not going to work, so I might stay with my brother to give him some water. And that day, I was detained in a special house with other people who did not go to work. The others were killed the next morning, and by a miracle, I was spared. Outstanding in my mind is the story of my sister's little girl named Bella. I myself, a teenager at that time, was caught in this terrible hell on earth, not knowing if I lived from one day to the other. Became responsible for the little girl's life. Bella was a smart and beautiful 5-year-old girl. When the Nazis came to our hometown, we managed to hide her, and she survived 2 deportations to the death camp Treblinka. One day, the Nazis forced us to move from the ghetto to barracks located on the outskirts of the city. And that day, Bella was taken away by the guards from her parents. They were forced to go on a truck and were sent away to an ammunition factory in another town. Bella was taken into a house with a few other children to be killed the next morning. That day, I was waiting outside the barracks to be assigned for work when I recognized an Ukrainian guard who previously had taken our group and from the ghetto for the hard work cutting turf. In desperation, I approached him and asked if he would save a Jewish child's life so that he might later have a better conscience. To my disbelief, he said that he would try. I risked my life because it was forbidden for me to wait near the house. Another Ukrainian guard picked up the rifle to start to shoot me when the house door opened and the guard came out with Bella. Quickly, I grabbed the child and hid her outside under a tall woven basket, which we made for grenades for the German army. I told her not to move because she would be caught and killed. She understood and obeyed. From now on, Bella became my responsibility. I had to teach her how she should hide in the barrack when the Nazis came to count us. With a wink of my eye, she ran under the wooden bunk bed and kept her mouth covered with her little hand not to give out a sound. She knew that if she would be caught, the people in the barrack and I would be killed. By the way, I was lucky to be assigned for the barrack to clean the barrack, so I could take care of Bella. Bella did not receive the small portion of bread which they gave us. She is not supposed to exist. So I and my sister shared our pieces of precious bread with her. Though in the barrack the people knew of the danger Bella caused to us, we looked at her like she would be the greatest treasure on earth and the only child left. She gave us hope and courage to go on with our lives in those horrible conditions. One day I learned that there will be a deportation to Majdanek concentration camp in Poland, and my sister and I will be in this transport. We heard rumors that in Majdanek camp the Nazis killed in one day 20,000 Jewish people, and the chimneys are burning day and night. So how can I take the child with me? There were wires dividing the barracks place with an ammunition factory where my teenage brother worked. I saw him through the wires and told him that I will be deported. There was not much time to think. I explained the situation to the child. I gave her my last hug and kiss. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said that she will obey again. I lifted the wires, pushed her through the other side, and from now on, she became my brother's responsibility. As the Russian army approached, Bella and the rest of the workers were forced to walk many kilometers to Auschwitz concentration camp. On the way, a guard told Bella to go on a horse-drawn wagon with people who could no longer walk. Bella said, "I do not want to go on the wagon. They will be killed and I want to live." For Bella, the saga ended. The little girl was taken away to the place of no return. Bella did not survive. She was murdered together with the 1.5 million children. It makes me think that perhaps if she would survive, she could be in this generation a useful person to society, and this heinous crime by the Nazis should never be forgotten. In the memory of Bella and the 1.5 million children whose poems will never be read, whose music will never be heard, whose hands can never heal the sick, and whose love can never comfort the lonely. Afterwards, the Nazis moved us by cattle train to Majdanek concentration camp in Poland. They took away the rest of my belongings, especially they took away my shoes, giving us wooden shoes without socks. I was dressed in a striped uniform with a prison number. In Majdanek, we met 50 young girls. They were eyewitnesses to the killings of the 20,000 Jewish people. The girls were left to work in the magazines sorting the clothing after the dead people. When the camp was liquidated, the 50 girls went to Auschwitz to be killed, and I was transported to Plaszow concentration camp near Krakow in Poland. This was a camp of selections and killings. Dr. Joseph Mengele came to this camp. We had to undress to parade in front of him, and he made selections. Who will be still able to work will live, and who is weak will die. I saw Commandant Goethe on the white horse shooting people right and left. I started to run and managed to hide. This was the camp where Oskar Schindler managed to save more than 1,000 people. I was in this camp 4 months, suffering, hunger, and hard work. From Plaszow, I was transported to Auschwitz concentration camp Birkenau. Our humiliation became complete by shaving off all our hair. The guards took us to the showers. I was shivering and thinking, this is the end of my life. But instead, gas came out water. Next came a camp called Gundelsdorf near Plaszow in Germany. In this camp, we worked very hard by loading on trains heavy cables, electric poles in bitter cold weather. My hands got frostbites from touching the hardware. Coming back from the hard work to the barrack, I stood in line with my plate to get some soup. The soup was like water. The next day I was in line to be the last. So maybe there will be in the soup a piece of potato, but when I approached the soup pot, there was nothing left. I went to sleep on the wooden floor bed, hungry only to start another day of hard work. In this camp, one day, I carried potatoes to the German kitchen. I was so hungry that I took 2 potatoes and hid them in my striped uniform pants. Coming back to the barrack, I was searched, and the guards found the 2 potatoes. I was punished by beating me with a rubber club over my body. Next, we were taken by cattle train to Ravensbrück concentration camp in Germany. This was a journey of death, 6 nights and 6 days without bread or water. In this camp, we looked from starvation more like skeletons than human beings, and the lice ate us up alive. I asked myself, why do they want to kill me? The only reason being is that I was born Jewish. I wanted to die so many times, I lost my hope. But as the war was nearing to an end, I was determined to live. I became afraid that the war will end soon and no one will be left to tell what happened to us. Again, with the Russian army advancing, the Nazis sought to delay their defeat and our liberation. So they fled towards the American front, taking us with them for more killing and more suffering. We stopped at 2 other small camps, Rechlin and Radom. In Rechlin camp, the guards took stale bread from their kitchen and threw it outside the assembly place. I was very hungry and I stood nearby and wanted to grab a loaf of bread, but in a short time I fell to the ground and I was covered with many inmates who also wanted to grab the bread. I was underneath and could not breathe. Then a guard fired a shot and the human mountain dispersed. I was saved from suffocation. I heard bombing. I was chased out into the death march, walking and falling from weakness. The guards gave us boxes of canned food donated by the Red Cross, but by this time I could not eat. My stomach was shrunken. I could not walk any longer in the death march, so we passed the forest and I managed to hide in the forest under a tree. I waited 2 days and 2 nights. The air was cold, the nights were dark, pierced with bombardments and shootings. I thought that I won't live to see the daylight. And on May 1st, 1945, I was liberated from this hell on earth by the Russian army. I weighed very little, and I was very weak. Coming to my senses, I then realized and felt the impact of the tragedy that once I had a home, parents, family, and now I am left all alone. The Allies said to us, "You are free, we came to liberate you." Sorry. The liberation came much too late for the millions of parents, brothers, sisters, and children who went to the gas chambers. The soldiers who liberated us saw the gas chambers and the ashes, and those ashes of our loved ones still cry out to us survivors and beg us to bear witness to the world of what happened. After the war, on my journey back to Poland to find someone from my family, I got very sick with typhus fever. In the hospital near Berlin, laying with high fever, I had a vision that my mother came, and she said to me, "My child, you have to survive again so you can teach and tell the tragic story of your life and the Jewish people." After a short stay in Poland, I arrived in Stuttgart, Germany, in a displaced person camp. For the first time in 6 years, I did not see a rifle or gun pointed at me. I was free to walk the streets, free to have enough food, free to have a normal bed to sleep in, free to manage to be useful again and to able to fit into society. At last, I was free to marry and to have good children and grandchildren, of whom we are very proud. Some people question how long we will talk about the Holocaust. Some people even deny that the Holocaust happened. My answer is that how can we forget our suffering and that so many innocent people lost their lives? How can I forget that after so many years I have still nightmares that the Nazis are running after me and they want to kill me? Never again evil and monstrous murderers like the Nazis should be permitted to rule a country, so another Holocaust can be prevented. The Jewish people, they risked their lives in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising under the heroic leadership of Mordechai Anielewicz. They fought to the last drop of blood against the tremendous Nazi machinery. Finally, we resisted with our minds, and the Nazis could not crush our spirit, our faith, or our love. And how many books are written on the Holocaust? How many movies were made? Or how many museums are built? Cannot depict the real tragedy of my suffering. There was a silent world that did not care. Those that had ears but would not hear. Those that had eyes but would not see. And those that had mouths which they did not speak out on our behalf. I believe if we would have at that time a country of our own, the Holocaust would never happen. That's why we should help and support our beloved country Israel, and may Israel go from strength to strength. Now I can rest better knowing that our children promise to take over our task and carry on our legacy from generation to generations. Zachor, let us always remember, please remember, that history may repeat itself if we allow ourselves to forget. My nightmares, by day I can escape, but often at night when I sleep, I return to where the shadows are long and the darkness is surreal. I return to where the earth is mingled with ashes of innocent souls. I lie still among the corpses, eerie, silent, and cold. I feel boots marching. I hear rifle shootings. I wake in terror and shake. I return to where electric fences keep the world away. I lie silently on my bunk, hungry all the day. Shrill screams rend the air. Does not anyone care? I wake in terror and shake. I return to where flames leap to heaven and smoke covers the sky. I sit quietly on the ground and watch so many die. The stench of death in every breath. I wake in terror and shake. I want to mention that in Majdanek concentration camp in Poland, my number on the stripe uniform was 154,200.